My children, come closer, sit near the fire and open your ears. The night is deep, the moon is watching, and the crickets are singing. It is at such a time that old women like me tell stories that carry both laughter and tears, stories that teach wisdom hidden in the shadows of the past. Today, I will tell you the story of Obinna, a man whose patience and pain turned into a lesson for the whole village. In the land of the Igbo people, long, long ago, there lived a young man named Obinna. He was not the son of a wealthy chief, nor the child of a great hunter. No, Obinna was a simple farmer. From sunrise to sunset, he bent his back over the earth, coaxing yam tendrils to climb, watering cassava, and guarding his maize from greedy birds. His hands were hard like the bark of the iroko tree, but his heart was soft, filled with dreams of a life beyond toil. Obinna's dream was not one of riches or titles. His greatest desire was to marry the love of his life, a girl named Adiz. She was the daughter of another farmer, known for her kindness, her laughter that rang like a bell, and her beauty that glowed like the full moon over the village square. Whenever Obinna worked in the farm, he thought of Adiz. And at night, when the palm oil lamps flickered, they would meet under the moonlight, whispering promises of a future together. But, my children, in those days, as it is still in some places today, marriage was not a simple matter of love. A man had to bring the bride price, to honor the family of the woman he wished to marry. Obinna knew this well. So he saved every cowrie, every coin, every little thing he could gather. He ate sparingly, worked double, and stored his harvest carefully, all for the day when he would stand tall before Adiz's people and claim her hand.
Grandma's voice drops low, almost like a warning. But listen well, my children, when a man's destiny shines, envy rises in shadows. Obinna was diligent, yes, but not everyone in his family wished him well. My children, let me tell you more about Obinna, for a man is not only his hands that work the soil, but also the dreams that sit in his heart. And Obinna's dream was as clear as the morning sun. Every morning, Obinna rose before the rooster crowed. He tied his wrapper firmly around his waist, picked up his hoe, and walked to his farmland. The dew kissed his feet, the soil clung to his hands, and yet he smiled, for he knew each yam he planted, each grain of maize he harvested, was a step closer to Adiz. He was not lazy, no. The villagers often said, Obinna's sweat waters his farm more than the rain itself. At midday, while others rested under the shade of the palm trees, Obinna counted his savings. He had a small wooden box, hidden beneath the floor mat in his hut. Inside were cowries, copper coins, and little treasures he had gathered from selling extra yams and firewood in the market. Each time he opened the box, his heart leapt with hope. He imagined the day he would present the bride price to Adiz's father. And oh, Adiz, sweet Adiz. She was the jewel of her mother's compound. Her beauty was not only in her face, but in her gentle spirit. When she passed by, even the old women selling okra in the market blessed her with prayers. She loved Obinna deeply, not for his wealth, but for his honest heart. At night, under the gaze of the moon, they would sit by the stream, whispering of the future. One day, Adiz would say, your sweat will be enough to carry me into your home. But, my children, in every calabash of sweet palm wine, there may hide a bitter kernel. Though Obinna's love was pure, and his savings grew steadily, shadows of envy began to stir in his household. His sister, Ngozi, watched him with eyes sharper than a hawk. She desired comfort without sweat, riches without labor. And his parents, oh yes, they were weak to her pleading tongue. Grandma pauses, her voice low, almost whispering, my children, a man may dream of the stars, but sometimes it is his own family that pulls him down to the mud. And in my children, listen well, for the heart of this story begins to beat here. When the snake wants to bite, it does not hiss too loudly. After many moons of saving, Obinna finally gathered enough to approach Adiz's father. His heart was full, and his smile was brighter than the sun after rainfall. He took his wooden box of cowries and coins and placed it before his parents. Father, mother, he said with pride, Here is all I have saved. Please go and speak on my behalf to Adi's family. I am ready to take her as my wife. But children, not every ear that hears good news rejoices. His sister, Ngozi, had been watching. She was a woman with a quick tongue and greedy eyes. She too was ripe for marriage, but her suitors had not the wealth required. That night, she whispered into their mother's ear, "Why should Obinna waste all these cowries on Adiz? Give them to me instead, for my groom is waiting. If Obinna is truly a man, let him start saving again." The mother's heart was weak, and the father's ears bent easily. Together, they agreed. Instead of carrying Obinna's bride price to Adiz's people, they secretly used it for Ngozi's marriage. When the time came, Obinna returned from the farm, full of excitement, only to hear drums and singing in the compound. His sister was being prepared for her wedding, wearing beads he had unknowingly bought with his sweat. When he demanded answers, his parents laughed bitterly. "Obinna, are you mad? Ngozi deserves this more. You can always save again. After all, is Adiz running away?" His sister mocked him openly, calling him a fool. "Ah, my children," Grandma's voice trembles, "betrayal cuts deepest when it comes from blood. Remember this. The snake in the grass is dangerous, but the snake in your room will strike you first." The news spread like harmattan fire across the village. People whispered at the market, "Obinna's own parents used his bride price for Ngozi." Ha! What kind of man cannot even control his household? Children laughed behind him as he passed, calling him Aninzuzu, the foolish one. On the day of Ngozi's marriage, the compound overflowed with guests. Drummers beat their talking drums, women ululated, and dancers stamped the earth until dust rose like smoke. Obinna stood at the corner, his heart breaking. The same bride price he had sweated for was being celebrated in another's name. Worse still, his parents danced proudly, while his sister smiled like a queen, wrapped in fine cloth bought with his labor. Adiz heard the news and wept bitterly. Though she loved Obinna, shame pressed on her like a heavy load. Her friends teased her. "Look, the man you wait for cannot even pay your bride price." But Adiz, with a heart stronger than iron, stood by Obinna. "Your time will come," she whispered to him in the shadows. Obinna walked through the village with his head bowed. Some mocked, others pitied him, but few stood on his side. His nights became long, his food tasteless, his dreams clouded. Yet he did not curse. Instead, he lifted his eyes to the sky and said, "Chukwu, the great god, and you, my ancestors, you see my suffering. Judge between me and my family." Grandma sighs deeply. Children know this. The laughter of the wicked is like the morning dew. It shines for a moment, but disappears when the sun rises. Do you want to know if Obinna's sun ever rose again? Wait, let me tell you in the next part. And my children, listen with both ears. When a man is beaten in the marketplace, he does not fight back there. He waits until the night to cry to the spirits. That was what Obinna did. After the shame of Ngozi's wedding, Obinna became a shadow of himself. He worked his farm, but his heart was heavy. He ate little, slept less, and spoke only to Adiz, who never abandoned him. But inside, his soul burned with questions. How could his own blood betray him? How could laughter rise from drums while tears flooded his heart? One moonless night, when the world was silent and even the dogs slept without barking, Obinna carried a calabash of palm wine, kola nut, and a white cock to the village shrine. The shrine was old, built with red earth and guarded by the spirit of the ancestors. Its walls bore the marks of time, and the air around it smelled of incense and mystery. Obinna knelt, his forehead touching the earth. His voice cracked as he spoke. "Great ancestors of my father's line, you who see beyond the walls of men's hearts, you who drink kola nut and taste palm wine, hear me. I have been wronged by my own blood. My sweat has been stolen, my joy trampled. If I am guilty, punish me. But if I am innocent, rise and fight for me." As he poured libation, the night wind rose. The trees whispered, and the owl hooted thrice. The white cock crowed though dawn was far away. Obinna trembled, but did not move. He left the offerings and walked back to his hut, his spirit lighter, his hope rekindled. My children, Grandma lowers her voice. The ancestors may walk slowly, but their steps never miss the path. From that night onward, Obinna's life began to change. The days that followed were unlike any Obinna had known. His farm, which had once yielded modestly, suddenly flourished. Yams grew thick like the thighs of wrestlers, cassava stretched long and strong, and his maize stood tall, golden as the midday sun. Even the soil seemed to smile at him. Villagers whispered, "What charm is Obinna using?" But he only bowed his head, for he knew the ancestors had answered. At the marketplace, traders sought him out, offering double the price for his produce. With every sale, his wooden box grew heavier. Before long, Obinna was no longer the poor farmer mocked in whispers. He became the young man every elder greeted with respect. Meanwhile, Adi's parents watched carefully. They had doubted before, but now they saw Obinna's fortune rising like the morning sun. One evening, her father called her aside. "Daughter," he said, "the boy you love is not ordinary. The ancestors are with him. When he comes again, we will not turn him away." Adi smiled, her heart dancing like the talking drum. And true to his words, when Obinna returned with gifts, yams, palm oil, wine, and fine cloth, Adi's family welcomed him with open arms. Songs were sung, kola nut was broken, and marriage talks began afresh. The same villagers who once mocked now nodded with approval, saying, "Indeed, the gods bless the patient." But listen, children, when the river rises, it also floods the banks. As Obinna's star brightened, Ngozi's own light began to dim. Her husband, once boastful, grew harsh. Misfortune crept into her household, and poverty knocked at her door. Grandma leans closer, her eyes shining. "Children, do you see? The ancestors do not sleep. They repay each according to their deeds. But what will Obinna do when his mocking sister comes crawling back? Let us see in the next part. And my children, let me tell you how the world turns. Today's laughter can become tomorrow's tears, and the one mocked may one day be the one honored." As Obinna's wealth grew, he became the pride of the village. His barns overflowed with yams, his goats multiplied, and his farmland stretched far like the wings of an eagle. At Adi's wedding, the drums beat louder than thunder, and the feast lasted for days. Villagers who once called him foolish now praised his name, saying, "The gods surely favor this man." But in another compound, joy turned into bitterness. Ngozi, the sister who mocked him, was suffering. Her husband had grown cold, drinking more than he worked. Their house was empty, their farms dry, and hunger often visited them. The same friends who once clapped for her began to avoid her. She wept at night, regretting the day she mocked her brother. At last, driven by shame and hunger, Ngozi came to Obinna's compound. She fell at his feet, her wrapper torn, her face wet with tears. "Brother," she cried, "forgive me. I was blind with greed. Help me, or my children will perish." The villagers gathered, whispering. Some said, "Obinna, this is your chance to revenge. Let her taste what she gave you." Others urged mercy. All eyes turned to him. Obinna looked at his sister for a long while. His heart remembered the pain, the mockery, the betrayal. But then his eyes softened. He raised her up, gave her food, and clothed her children. "Ngozi," he said gently, "the gods have judged between us. I will not add to your punishment. Take this help and learn wisdom." "Ah, my children," Grandma's voice trembles, "true strength is not in revenge, but in forgiveness." But wait, let me tell you how this tale ends. The village never forgot what happened. From that day, Obinna's name was spoken with respect. The elders often pointed at him when teaching the young men, saying, "Work hard like Obinna. Be patient like Obinna. Trust the ancestors like Obinna." Ngozi, humbled by her fall, never mocked him again. She became quieter, wiser, and often warned young girls in the market, "Do not let greed blind you, or you will stumble as I did." Even her parents, ashamed of their weakness, began to treat Obinna with honor, admitting their foolishness. As for Obinna and Adiz, their home was filled with laughter, children, and blessings. He never forgot the tears of his early days, but he used them as lessons to guide others. Now, my children, hear the end of the matter. Patience is not weakness, and betrayal does not end a man's story. The ancestors see, the gods judge, and destiny cannot be stolen. Obinna's life became living proof that suffering is like fire. It may burn, but it also purifies. So, my children, Grandma leans closer, her eyes shining in the firelight. Remember this proverb. Patience is like palm wine. At first it tastes bitter, but with time, it becomes sweet on the tongue. Greed, however, is like firewood eaten by termites. It looks strong, but when the fire comes, it crumbles into ash. Grandma claps her hands softly, ending the tale. The children sigh, some with relief, others with wonder. Outside, the night is deep, but their hearts are warm with wisdom. That is the story of Obinna, the man betrayed by his family, but lifted by the ancestors. May you carry its lesson with you, wherever you go.